Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us here. These are really exciting evenings for us at the Ford Foundation. The AtriumFlix series celebrate not only our belief that art is for everyone, because these are free screenings, but they also celebrate our belief in the power of storytelling. At the Ford Foundation, our Freedom of Expression unit and our JustFilms documentary unit, which is represented here tonight by Sharon LaCruz, believe powerfully that storytelling has the ability to bring people together, to illuminate shared humanity, and to drive social change in an extremely meaningful and lasting way. There are people who don't respond to policy arguments, but everybody responds to story. Tonight, we are thrilled to present Elvis Mitchell in conversation with Mira Nair and to screen the film Mississippi Masala. Mira Nair, of course, is someone who brings the lessons of living in 3 continents to her work. She's been a documentary filmmaker, an independent filmmaker, and a major studio filmmaker. Her films have been celebrated with every award that you can possibly imagine. In fact, her first popularly recognized film, Salam Bombay, is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year, which is absolutely remarkable. Other films that you're familiar with, I'm sure, include The Perez Family, Kama Sutra, A Love Story, Monsoon Wedding, and very soon, The Reluctant Fundamentalist, which debuts, I think, at Tribeca in just a few weeks. Tonight, of course, we're screening Mississippi Masala, which is an extraordinary story about identity and family and otherness. And most of all, I think it's really a romance, as you'll see. We're also thrilled to have with us all the way from Los Angeles, Elvis Mitchell this evening. Elvis has been a film critic for publications including LA Weekly, Detroit Free Press, and New York Times. He currently curates the Film Independent program at LA County Museum of Art. And as someone who lived in Los Angeles for 15 years, I can tell you he's also responsible for this LA unique phenomenon, which is called the driveway moment. The driveway moment is when you don't want to get out of your car because of what you're listening to on the radio. In this case, that is The Treatment on KCRW, which has been responsible for many, for many driveway moments in my life. Please join me in giving a great AtriumFlix welcome to the fabulous Mira Nair and Elvis Mitchell.
That was very cool. Thank you so much for saying that. Excuse me? That's much better.
All right,
that's much better.
All right. Oh, please, Elvis.
May I rise?
A little Beyonce goes a long way.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's interesting that we're showing Mississippi Masala here tonight, because I think of your first 3 films as being, for me, kind of your skin trilogy, where you luxuriate in flesh. I mean, these beautiful people with gorgeous skin.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a unique kind of aspect of these movies, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I remember after Mississippi Masala, a friend of mine wrote to me about the epiphany of seeing Denzel with Sarita, this black and brown skin, you know, in a motel in Biloxi. I mean, that it was just an absolute revelation because it hadn't been seen on screen before. And of course, I don't think that way because that is my world or part of my world, but it's wonderful to be introducing that beauty to the rest of the world.
Oh, no, it really was. And because that is unusual, and still, you know, that kind of thing is still unusual, seeing brown people in movies having adult romantic concerns.
Regular people.
Yeah, people just like you and me.
That's us.
Interesting concept. But no, just going back to those first 3 films, well, this thing with Salam Bombay and Mr. Masala and Kama Sutra, just, it's also, they're kind of movies about appetites too, in a way, aren't they? Sort of, and that's sort of the difference between social ambition and the appetites of the flesh.
Absolutely. I mean, appetite is a beautiful word. You are really good at what you do, Elvis. I mean, I'm just like, that's amazing, appetite, because that's the word. You know, there's a beautiful Kampala phrase, lifest. Kampala, East Africa, where I live, is lifest is someone who has an appetite for life, you know, and it's the word, appetite. You have to have it, or you shrink or something. So I've never been on a diet in my life, you know. I'm like perpetually got this appetite. And
well, it looks really good on you.
Oh, thank you, darling. Thank you so much.
Girl, do your thing.
Guys, this is what we're going to do all the evening. I don't know if you... We better be serious, Elvis. This is about movies.
Better be. That's right. You're a tenured professor, for God's sake.
No, 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 no. They haven't had the sense to tenure me. But I'm tenured to movies, so that's fine. That's enough.
But, you know, again, that thing of just... Did you realize that as you were making those movies that was concomitant with all three of them, that they were kind of about the social ambition versus like the spiritual appetite? I mean, it links those three movies, doesn't it?
Well, you know, it's all in hindsight, that kind of thinking. But I grew up in a small town in Orissa, in East India, where people in India also don't know where that is. Bhubaneswar, Orissa. It's like being from Appalachia or something over here.
Or Detroit, where I'm from.
No. Detroit made cars. We don't make much, except we had 2,000 temples, which were extraordinary, like 11th century onward temples. I mean, Buddhism was a big, the originating place of Buddhism was this place, Orissa, where I came from. But when I grew up there, it was just tall grass around these temples. We weren't even on tourist maps, if you can believe it, seriously. And we used to play hide and seek in these extremely amazing places without even, I knew they were amazing, but most of us didn't think so, you know. So the world was right in front of me, and I used to be very interested right from the beginning. My mother tells a story about how I would go running in the morning when I was 11, and I would always come back with a milkman, because the milkman story was much more interesting than running another block. And you know, that type of life is juxtaposed cheek by jowl, whether you're a civil servant's kid like I was, or a milkman. You lived, you coexisted, you know. And that I think changed my world, and the way I looked at the world, because I wanted to change that. I wanted to change what the discrepancy between those who had so much and those who had literally nothing. And in my experience of those who have nothing is the most extraordinary generosity. And I can generalize about that. You know, when people have so little, they give the most possible. At least that's my experience, you know, in life, in the world, whether it's Uganda
I think Mitt Romney would agree with you on that.
I mean, you know, every time I return here, the excess just drives me up the wall. And the waste drives me even more up the wall, because people have no actual consciousness of living just simply.
No, but as you were talking about this, and again, I just talked to her last week for my show and watching all the movies again, one of the things that's really incredibly central to you is the house is kind of a social center. It's the house where people get together and all these tensions happen. And I still find it to be something kind of unique to the way you work. Even when you did Amelia, these homes became these places where all these sort of social tensions came into play. And again, to me, that's always felt like, and I said this to you before, a real novelistic detail to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, a lot we read. You know, that's what we did growing up. We read everything. I read everything. I mean, I used to go to Oxford book fairs as a 15-year-old, because the sort of just the fragrance of the binding of these Penguin books used to get me high, if you know what I mean. So I definitely when I came to America, it's sometimes so open here, but also very insular here. So people would meet me and say, "Oh, you just come from India. How come you speak such good English?" You know, and I would sort of say, well, I spoke much better English before I came here, because I said, "Oh, really?" And he said, "Yeah, you know, the Queen's English is, very much a certain set, and come to America and it's all, oh my God, it's great. I mean, it's neat. Oh my God, I'm like depressed." I mean, that's so.
Hillary Swank, ladies and gentlemen.
So reading was the stuff of life, seriously, you know. But living was even more
but the thing you do though is that you bring that kind of social detail to all the movies. And was that something you were conscious about doing, trying to get that kind of life that's lived in books into the films?
Well, I really did grow up with this very pretentious and idealistic question whether art could change the world. I really did grapple with that actively since I was 12, 13 years old, you know. And I was pretty industrious about it. I said, okay, what can I do with my life? Should I paint? And I would look at great painters, and I would try to see if I could actually copy and make paintings, and in 1 month I would say, no, I'm not a painter. Then I started to play the sitar for 2 years when I was 11 and 12 and 13. It's a very difficult instrument and very beautiful instrument. And I had this great, I remember Oprah Winfrey asked me to write an aha moment, you know, and you know, it's very this instant American wisdom, aha. So I said, okay, I'll try this aha wisdom, whatever. And and my
and as
aha
Americans,
moment,
we're not insulted by any of these little aspersions you're making. Oh my God, tell me more about the aha moment.
You'll have fun. This is fun.
Yes, ma'am, you were saying.
So the aha moment, I'm now being serious, is this Bengali teacher on his bicycle who would come to teach me sitar. And I was equally interested in theater and changing the world. But 2 years I played, and I was not bad. I was not bad to the extent that he said to me, listen, you have to choose. Either you'll play the sitar and surrender to this extraordinary tradition and heritage and learning, or you do something else. But you can't do this and that and that and that, you know?
Really?
And that was a major aha moment, because from where I come, the depth of knowledge that goes into, let's say, what we know as yoga here, or what we know as classical music here, or any of it, the sutras, the Vedas, the books, you know, all of it is so deep and so layered and so old that to become a student of it, you need almost your whole life, you know? So I didn't know that. I was a young kid, you know, but it was a very interesting learning to understand that one must focus and one must, you know, surrender to whatever the art, or, I mean, if you're lucky enough to find a passion. And I was lucky. I found something that possessed me, which is film, since I was 20 years old.
Did film possess you always in the same way that playing the sitar did, for
Not at
example?
all. I grew up in a little town. I said, like the Blue Mountains, you know, like in Appalachia, I mean, where there was only one theater, movie theater, and that's unusual because in India we live on movies, and there are hundreds of theaters, but in the 60s and 70s, only one theater in this town, and it only played Dr. Zhivago. Every Sunday morning, I had to see the guy's icicles in his mustache. I mean, you know, Omar Sharif is good looking, but there's a limit.
There's a big limit when you talk about Omar Sharif.
Limit. And so I never took movies. I didn't even know they were there to be taken seriously, honestly. And the first movie I saw was when we were taken to the big city, which was overnight by train, Calcutta, where I saw John Wayne in Hatari when I was 12, I think. And it was quite, I still remember it, you know.
It's a physically beautiful movie.
It
so
is,
that must have really done something to you. But did you feel that aha moment, if I may quote Oprah?
No. I just felt small town girl in a big city watching a white man with animals. And he was doing pretty well with them.
And you take me back to Mitt Romney when you bring this up. But I just wonder, because of the scale of that movie, because in fact, the two movies you're talking about between Hatari and Dr. Zhivago are really big films. Big ones, yeah. So just that sense of scale must have done something to you.
It's true. Although I didn't at all know that at the time, but definitely the David Lean thing, you know, because he did Ryan's Daughter, he did so many films, the director of Dr. Zhivago, which was so much in accord with being a kid post-colonial India, because you read these books, you know, vastly. Russia and India were like this, you know, when I was growing up. So the Russian novels was just what was only in our bookshops, and not so much American, not so much English or anything. I mean, it was Russian novels. So Dostoevsky, Chekhov, Turgenev, all of the above.
This really explains so much about you, because this thing we're talking about in terms of the house, and all those people congregating there and bringing all these tensions and bringing all these dramas into the home is one of the centerpieces of a lot of the literature you read, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Again, all in hindsight, but I could read Chekhov forever because I see our families, everything we are, in him, you know, which is how people tell me how they feel when they see Monsoon Wedding or when they see The Namesake. They see their whole family or their yearnings for a family, whichever, some element of themselves in those movies.
But you're talking about Chekhov too,
Yeah.
and so much of Chekhov, there's that sort of, that hunger to escape, to be someplace else,
Yeah.
and to be away from this family that defines you.
Yeah.
And that's also something that's run thematically through a lot of your work as well.
And the inability to be away from the family as well, you know. But I love Chekhov because he loves everyone he writes about. You know, he knows them. I mean, he loves to the point of being harsh, even.
He's
like
very
unflinching.
harsh. Yes.
I don't mean love kuchiku. You know, I don't mean Hallmark love and send a card every time you see someone. That's a conspiracy of the marketing people. But I mean another kind of love. But I like that. I like that it's love in all its foibles and warts and all of that. That's human beings.
It's funny you say it because your love is a much more, I think, charismatic, affectionate love than that.
Oh, thank you, Elvis. Really, thank you. Because it is being lifeist. You know, I don't want movies to be like homework at all. I don't want movies to be like, even though I'm known for like social things and being, and I am, I believe in the world. I believe in looking at the world squarely. But they are journeys of music, of emotion, of, I hope, entertainment, of some sort of mirror in which hopefully you see something of oneself, you know.
But you don't want people to encounter these movies first and foremost as social
Not
examinations.
At all. That's what I'm
mean,
saying. It's not. It's about hopefully like a bit of a cornucopia. See, that's my Queen's English.
I would almost, yes, very good of you. I don't want to say like Carnival though, because in almost all these films we enter, there's a lot of stuff going on at the very beginning. It's like you want to throw so much at audiences that, especially in the cases of your earlier movies when we didn't know the actors, a lot of Americans didn't. Some of us did.
Yeah.
But you go, well, whose story is she going to follow? Is she going to follow Sarita or Roshan Seth? I mean,
Yeah.
which, and then you go to the black family. But
Yeah.
it's interesting that in each of these movies, you start off with all this noise going on.
Yeah. I mean, if you come from India, you come from a circus. You know, it's a circus everywhere. I mean, I've just come back from Los Angeles 2 hours ago, and everyone is dressed in beige. I mean, they're all beige. At least it strikes me as beige. No, you're fine today. But
Today. I wasn't so good last week when you saw me, but I'm fine today. Does anybody want to take over the
superb
microphone
last
now?
week.
Because
no, meaning it's pretty manicured. You know the universe. And in India, it's a circus. You know, it's cheek by jowl, the mansions, the slums, the people who are, you know, really exploiting you, living right next to you, and all of the above. Insane contradictions. But there's an interesting, mad humanity to it, you know. So I have always been attracted to that idea of the layering, the density in stories. And always with every film, somehow the challenge has been to take the different stories, like often there are 3 plots or 5 plots in the story, and how to make the skein, how to make the spine that knits it. So in Salaam Bombay, for instance, it was about this street kid, it was about this young child.
it's about the circus.
Yeah, the circus. It was about this young girl brought from Nepal, sold into prostitution. It was about a prostitute and her daughter and many characters. It was about drugs on the street, so many things. And we believed and we kept writing, and it was first film. But only 2 weeks before shooting did a friend of mine, he's the executive producer of the film, come up with this. I had seen, weirdly, you know, I had seen John Waters' wonderful weird film, Odorama.
Oh.
You remember Odorama? It was this
Does
obscenely
anybody know what Odorama
obscene
was?
film where you go into the theater with your
Scratch and
ticket, you
sniff
have
cards.
a card of scratching numbers, 1 to 8.
Scratch and sniff according to the Queen's
Scratch and
English.
sniff.
Yes.
I mean, it is so gross, you can't believe it. And then you go into the theater and they do all these stupid things on screen, and then the number flashes 8, 8, 8, and then you scratch 8, and then you smell it, and then you say, oh God, that was awful. And the whole theater does that. Anyway, that was the key to Salaam Bombay for us, weirdly, because 2 weeks before shooting, we realized that what the little boy, Chai Pao, the tea boy, needed was 500 rupees, like $10, to go back home to his mother, because he had burnt his brother's scooter, and his brother's scooter cost that much, and unless he made it, he wasn't allowed to come back. And this simple idea of sort of following through the whole movie, whether he's made 300 and then his friends break the tea glasses, so it's minus 50, you know, like the scoreboard of his, will he get home, you know, became the key, became the spine.
Because I almost wondered, for me, if Nights of Cabiria ever influenced us a little bit at all in some way.
Oh, but Fellini is such a great gift to us all. And not Nights of Cabiria directly, but like La Dolce Vita was a major influence when I was making Monsoon Wedding. Yeah, and Carlos was my template, not template, but like when you juice yourself with ideas, or just like you can keep going, was with The Reluctant Fundamentalist, which is my new movie opening right across the street in a couple of weeks.
I'm sorry, what's the opening date of the movie?
April 26th.
Ah, April 26th. And at which theater?
Right across the street.
Right across the street. Okay,
and
good.
downtown too, and everywhere.
I'm just going to make a mental note of that. You should all do that too.
It's called The Reluctant Fundamentalist.
The Reluctant Fundamentalist, based on the novel of the same name.
A wonderful novel by Mohsin Hamid. Yeah.
But let's talk about that for a little bit. First, I want to talk a little bit more about Mississippi Masala, because I think there are moments in each of your movies that really stick with me. And there's a shot of Sarita on the phone as the camera pans across her. That's
sexy,
quite delectable.
Yeah.
Tell me about composing that shot. I just want the audience to know what they're in for here, for those who haven't seen it.
Well, you know, I actually made the film, to be totally honest, and give you your money's worth, or it's free, right, this event, but I think
they're going to come out ahead in this case.
This is worth a lot, what I'm going to say. I actually made the film in a stupor of love, and I had fallen in love slam bang, and for the first time, and I'm now happily married to this object of my love, but I had just met him about 6 months before making Mississippi Masala, and so I knew how it felt to be strong, but to be really weak in the knees. You know, it was a stupor, actually, and Denzel was so amazing in every way, in terms of consummate actor, very nonchalant, appearing extremely prepared, all of that. And he did.
And you also let him show a sense of humor in this movie, which he doesn't often get to do.
I know, and he shows his upper chest, which he doesn't show in many movies, and he shows his butt, which he doesn't. Anyway, that's enough. But
I think I understand your use of the word stupor now more than I did 2 minutes ago.
It's true.
It's great to watch you blush this close up.
I'm not even. I'm post blushing now.
You're post blushing. Anybody have a cigarette out there? I think we're good here.
But, you know, anyway, I know how it felt. So there were many elements to his character in Mississippi Masala, the good son, the excellent older brother, the industrious boy, and all of that. And he did those to perfection. But when it came to the love story, just before we were filming that whole chapter, I just wasn't feeling it, you know, from what was happening on screen. And, you know, he'd just won the Oscar like a month before us starting to shoot, and we were no one. I mean, all of us were no one. Even he was not much of a one until that month. You know, but he was someone, at least compared
Black
to us.
Black people knew who he was, but you go ahead and talk amongst yourselves.
Meaning like, how do you direct someone who's just won the Oscar and you're no one? You know, in that sense.
Sure.
So, but I had the power of love.
You were an Oscar nominee at that point. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. But you know, women, we think we are nothing and all that nonsense. But I'm just joking.
Oh, tell me more about this. Is getting
no,
good
no. I'm just really just being stupid. But I remember psyching myself up in cotton fields in Mississippi. We were doing the last shot, but that was the beginning of the shooting of the love stuff. And I remember like psyching me. How do I get this other thing from Denzel? And I went into his trailer, and he's really a lovely guy. I mean, and he really loves my work. It's not like there was no tension as such. But I started by saying, you know, Denzel, you do this well, you do amazing this, that. And he looked a little bored by the platitudes, and he said, yeah, get on to it, you know. And I said, it's just the love, you know, I'm not buying it, and I know what it feels like, I'm in it. So, And then he looked at me kind of skeptically, and I said, just in case you think I'm a female director and I want all this nonsense, you know, sentimental, because that's what I thought I saw in his eyes. I said, let me tell you that I think your audience will really like it if you melt in the knees the way I am right now, you know. And he said, audience? You know, when I started talking marketing, he was like, yes, okay, Mira, I know what you mean, I'll do it. And I tell you, Elvis, it's interactive. This movie, when it was shown, I used to go around the theaters, it was interactive. They would start screaming, you know, like for him. And I was worrying, you know, I worried about the Asian black thing in terms of whether the sisters would want it or what would, you know, because...
Listen to you, whether the sisters would want it. Listen to you.
Yeah.
Somebody's watched a lot of Oprah. Tell me more, girlfriend. What else happened?
Sisters are always at the forefront of my mind.
They're certainly at the forefront of mine, but that's another conversation.
The absolute dread.
And you had an Asian woman stealing Denzel away? Ooh!
But it's tricky. I mean, the genesis of this movie was actually being a brown kid, and there weren't many of us then, at college at Harvard, where I got a scholarship.
Still aren't many of you.
Yeah, very few. Between black and white. You know, that was the genesis of this movie. You know, what I called then the hierarchy of color. Like, I, as a person like this, was accessible to both, but still there were invisible lines. And that was what the genesis of this movie that you're about to see comes from. But it obviously takes on its own story of the Asian expulsion and da-da-da. But this was what it was about. And so when I joke about the Asian black thing, it hadn't been done, you see. It was 1991.
Yeah.
It hadn't been done, and I just didn't know. But it's amazing what happened in the theaters after the movie, when the movie played. And it played and played, this movie, because it was just extraordinary. And you know, in the old days, I edited, Spike Lee and I are old friends, and we used to share the same editing room because we wanted to pay for 24 hours and he would do 12 and I'd do 12. You know, it's like cut rate. You know, basically we are wily third worlders. And so...
Wily third worlders?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm giving the notion of what we are supposed to be. And he said to me, he warned me, he said, you know, he's never going to take his shirt off, he said. And I said, Spike, I'm not worrying about whether Denzel takes his shirt off.
He tried really hard on Mo Better Blues. It's a real struggle.
It didn't happen. And I didn't even want, I mean, that wasn't my agenda, seriously. But in this movie, without being asked, I swear to God, Denzel was like, all right, I'm under the car, I'm fixing this car, I'm not going to go in there with my shirt, it's off. I said, yeah, okay, let's go. So it was...
I don't speak directing. What does this mean? Is that a good thing?
Excellent.
Okay.
It's like an Indian, for Roger Ebert, may he rest in peace, and we miss him so much. But this thumbs up, it actually comes from an Indian cola, which is a copy of Coca-Cola but better, and it's called Thumbs Up.
How's
so
that
I grew
possible?
up with Thumbs Up.
How's it that's better than Coca-Cola? You chauvinist, you.
I don't drink soda, frankly, so
I can tell you, see your contempt for cola in that very sentence. But that scene I'm talking about, where, I mean, first of all, when you're talking about this, Denzel had not had many chances to do love scenes.
Know.
I mean, he was and this really helped him to cross a line with that. I mean, he hadn't really done it until this movie. But there's that scene where she's on the phone that we get the feeling watching that you played that scene out yourself once or twice.
Many times, that scene.
It's such a great scene.
Because my dear love, my husband, but not at that time, was in Uganda. And I was in, you know, New York or Los Angeles. I mean, and I used to call him, and we used to speak to each other every day. And I remember when I was in that very serious earthquake, a 7.0 earthquake.
Oh, you were in LA for that, in 91?
I was in LA,
yeah.
In Shutter's Hotel, which is a hotel built on the beach, on wheels, so to cope with earthquakes. But when they happen, like they happened at 4:30 in the morning when I was flung out of bed, it's more exacerbated because of the wheels, because you really move, you know, you really are flung around. Wow. And I remember there was only one light burning, which was on the phone. Everything else was dead. And I, just from my memory of how the numbers are, I phoned him in Uganda. You know, you know, 001-256-772-479962. I mean, that's just from the...
So you could literally do it in the dark.
Yeah, did it in the dark. That's what love is. It's kind of nuts. But now, I don't know. I can do it, I think, but I'm not sure.
You just say, call my man, and the phone does it for you.
Siri, do it.
But talking about Uganda, and that's a pretty important part of this movie, too.
Yes, yes.
I mean, and it's, where are you living now?
I'm living right there. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, the house in the movie that the Indians leave and cannot forget is my home. And we bought it while we were making this movie, and we lived in it a year after we shot in this movie. And now that's our home. I gave birth in that home, and I have a 23-year-old garden in that place. And it's quite different now, because when you see this film, you see only green around the house and, you know, one red roof maybe. And now it's a sea of red roofs and a very
It's all been
fancy,
developed now.
fancy hill, yeah.
Oh
Unfortunately.
my gosh.
Or fortunate, whatever.
Well, talk to me a little bit about titles. It could be, so these titles are so, the first two movies are really evocative. Salam Bombay and Mississippi Masala. Where did those come from?
Well, just a love of cinema, really, and loving to use every moment that you're showing an audience. You know, just every moment must count.
And just usually you want those, so you have to start with the title.
Always, I don't start with the title. I make the movie and then I think about the title as a mini movie.
Okay.
And I was a huge fan, like many of us, of Elaine and Saul Bass, and he did the titles for all the James Bond movies and all the, I just loved that, you know, the director never...
And basically, still the old AT&T telephone bell.
Everything.
The United Airlines logo, Continental.
Yeah, and I also loved the 70s Bollywood titles, you know, the outrageous titles like Fame, Rape, Action, Come One, Come All. That kind of title was also very interesting. But the idea of not wasting your time when you're seeing my work, enjoy everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the titles become, I mean, was there a working title for Mississippi Masala? Was it just the Untitled Mira Nair project?
Oh, the movie.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the title design.
No, but I meant...
No. Titles are a big thing, because I really like to make titles that that are about what I come from, but not pandering to what you know or don't know, you know. So a lot of, you know, I have so many young friends now who are in their 30s here and who say, you know, Mira, I saw Indian Americans or Pakistani Americans, and they say, oh my God, to see masala, the word, on a marquee in a little town in Acton, Massachusetts, you know, was just a revolution for them growing up. Like Cal Penn, the star of Harold and Kumar and The Namesake. I mean, for him, when he saw which one? I think Mississippi. When he was 8 years old in a little suburban New Jersey town, he just thought, wow, an Indian, Asian type of woman, you know, on screen, that's my people, you know. I didn't think I could be in a movie, he said to me, you know. And it just sort of becomes very empowering, naturally. We know the power of this medium. But, so anyway, so I like to use in my titles, I like to locate you. You know, although the Italians in America always say it's Mississippi Marsala. But it's not Marsala. It's good old masala, spices. But I don't mind. As long as I'm part of the Italians, it's fine with me.
But I was going to actually follow up by asking about the title sequences too, because they're also very, like I said, very evocative. But you also use them in the sense to sort of create movies. Yeah. I mean, big movie experience that you're talking about. To sort of say, hey, pay attention to this.
Yeah, I'm taking you on a journey, you know, forget about the seatbelts, you know, just come with me. You know, it is like that. I mean, in Monsoon Wedding, it was,
another great title, by the way.
I love the titles of Monsoon Wedding. Jacob Trollback, this wonderful Scandinavian designers down on 30th Street. But what I came to him was the unbroken line of family, you know? And if you look at the Monsoon Wedding titles, it's just one line that expands and elevates.
It's
and
actually very Saul Bass-like.
Really big, amazing figures, everything, but it never breaks, you know, like family, you know? So it's a nice thing to take the core of a movie and make it something, you know, not just fun and visual and just to have a little good time, but about the essence of what you're saying, you know, but in a visual trip. You know, so the titles of my new movie also, they take months. They take 4 or 5 months to make, you know, but they're also again, I don't want to give it away, but they're very importantly worked through.
No, they really are. But let's talk a little bit about your relationship with Suni, who wrote the first.
She's great. Yeah.
How did you guys meet?
Suni Tarapurwala is the screenwriter, just for those who don't know, of Salam Bombay and Mississippi Masala and Namesake and My Own Country, many films. And when I came on a scholarship, as I said, when I was 18 and a half to Cambridge, to Massachusetts. And as any Indian does, they always ask, the first question is, are there any other Indians here? So there were only 3, and one of them was Suni. and two of them, 2 men and 1 Suni. And I was so happy, and I made the trip across Harvard Yard to meet her. And you know, she was an undergraduate. She studied photography and English literature, and we became mates. We just had a wicked sense of humor that we shared, and we liked to see the world visually, but we didn't work together. You know, she did her thing and I did mine. And then I graduated, made documentaries, and made a film on strippers in India called India Cabaret. And Suni came with me for the opening of the film in Hyderabad, another amazing, you know, big, passionate city about cinema. But documentaries were never seen then. And anyway,
did they ever even show documentaries in theaters?
They hardly ever did, but it's still a repressed society. So anything that smacks of a little sex has a lot of people in the theater. So India Cabaret had like 1,500 guys waiting to see it because they thought, oh, cabaret means, you know, like sex fest. So they came, and it was very scary, but it was really a success. It was very funny, and real people speaking in that real vocabulary, which is very different from the dialogue in our movies. You know, it's highfalutin and nothing like how people really are. So that was quite radical about that documentary. Anyway, Suni was with me, and we saw the power of regular people speaking and making jokes and funny, and pain of regular people on screen, working with the mass audience. And we decided to make a feature film. And I had this idea to make a film on street kids. And we both, sort of never having made a feature, we started researching, living with a gang of street kids for like 3-4 months, and then culling their stories and making what was then to become Salam Bombay. So I am very blessed, Elvis. I work with great friends and great, I cherish my film family, you know, and she's more than a film family, but I basically have worked with now many core people, like, well, this is shot by Ed Lackman, who's a great cinematographer, but like Declan Quinn has shot maybe 7 or 8 movies with me.
Including your latest, the Reluctant Fundamentalist, which opens across the street.
Only $13. Yeah, so, you know, that's a wonderful relationship to have a writer who understands and knows what you love and takes you further, most importantly.
So how did you guys arrive at Mississippi Masala? Talk me through the experience of coming up with that story and then making the movie.
Well, the germ for me was being brown between black and white in college, you know.
But you didn't
so that was the germ.
Okay.
And then Suni also had a girlfriend who's an Indian woman, beautiful Indian girl, who had a very good close relationship with a Jamaican guy in Cambridge, and they had their own, you know, her family and how they reacted to him and their own dramas, you know. But mine was really the beginning that I came to, the hierarchy of color, as I said. And first, I actually went with my dear friend, the brilliant novelist, Amitav Ghosh, with whom I went to college with, and we are old friends.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I played Cleopatra on the Delhi stage, and he was my slave.
You're making this up.
No.
He was
an actor? He carried me on stage, and that was not easy to do. Yeah.
I'm not going to touch that, but I will say.
Well-endowed Cleopatra.
Oh, stop it.
I swear to God.
Really?
I swear.
That's the greatest story ever.
And my Antony was Shashi Tharoor, who wanted to be the Director General of the UN and now is a minister in India. Yeah.
Dude,
I won't go further because I'll get into trouble. But yeah, I had illustrious slaves, shall I say. Anyway, so Amitav, whose writing I just adore, like the rest of the world, he and I first went to Mississippi to research the Mississippi motels. And then and then he said, you know, Mira, he's a novelist, and I knew that, and that the screenwriting wouldn't come that easy.
Did you ask him about writing the screenplay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That was why we went to research, just research to see how we felt about it. And then it wasn't so traumatic or anything. We just had this really interesting experience to see the reality. It was weeks in Mississippi and in Georgia and the whole South, basically. And then I asked Suni, because we'd just done Salam Bombay and we were very close friends. And so she came and then she started to, then she worked on the script. So we first started with interviewing about 2,000 exiles from Uganda, Asians, who had been expelled by Idi Amin in '72, who had come largely to England and to Canada. And I had research assistants and myself interviewing and meeting them. And then we went to Mississippi. And we lived for about 2 months in all the motels. And it was really very difficult to find an American-owned motel. It was completely bought by Indians because it was dirt poor, Mississippi especially. And these exiles who would come from Uganda could buy a whole motel for not much. And their whole family, regardless of whether they spoke English or not, could work in the motel. And they could live together and have a contained business and so on. It was an funny thing that then multiplied, and every motel was owned by an Asian family, Anyway, then Suni and I went there, and then we kept hearing about Uganda from these immigrants. And we decided to go for our first trip to the African continent, And we went to Nairobi, which I mistakenly thought was the land of Nairs, my people, but it wasn't. It was a bad joke.
So the world is really about you, isn't it, Mira?
Yeah, no, I'm just joking, but anyway. And then we went to Uganda because this was the place they dreamt about. Everyone talked about this fertile place. The equator runs through their houses, anything grows. You throw 2 seeds, you'll have papayas tomorrow. There are all these lovely stories we heard from everyone, And that's when I went there. And it was, I'm an adventurous person. I travel many places, but it was the only place in the world that as soon as I landed, I wanted to flee. Because the Civil War had just ended, there were soldiers everywhere, it was totally bombed, and it was no lights and no traffic lights, no, just wires in the sky, just darkness, really, and lots of soldiers. And life is such that I am now living there for the last 23 years.
At that point when you went, it was still kind of a dangerous place. It was still kind of settling into that government, which is...
Yeah. In fact, the beginning of Mississippi Masala is right out of my life, because I met Mahmood, my husband now, and and he was a professor in Kampala, and he took me to a wedding. And it's very interesting when you think as an outsider that, oh, it's bombed, it's finished, it's over, but then the person you come to interview says, okay, listen, come, the friends of mine are getting married, so let me take you to the wedding, in the middle of the bush, like this. And, life will carry on in all its manifestation. And anyway, at the end of that, we were coming back. He was dropping me back, and the first scene of the movie is what happened to us, where soldiers stopped us at every turn. And, I mean, it was kind of scary. But anyway, so art has always reflected the life that I have gone through.
Well, I could talk to you forever because I love hearing you talk, but we should start the movie.
We should
Let's thank Mira Nair for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sweetheart.
You're so kind. You're so good.
Thank you. And please see my new movie.
What's the name of the new movie again?
The Reluctant Fundamentalist. Kate Hudson, Kiefer Sutherland, Liev Schreiber, and a wonderful performance by Riz Ahmed, the young Pakistani-British actor. So please come. Thank you. Oh, thanks so much.